You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free Larry.
All right, here we are again. So lots happening, a lot of emotions, and there's some politics around some of it, but I don't know if that judge was being political. And of course, the judge could be. I don't know that judge personally. However, in that judge being, let me give that information because I know it's on everybody's mind and I don't have to, but I will. The judge that sentenced the business opener during the pandemic closure to 7 days in jail and a $7,000 fine. I don't know if he was being political. He lives in a certain judicial world. And if he sat back in his chair in his chambers before he went out to the bench, he would say, what cases have I sat on, and do I sit on that are similar to this case so that I can apply that same thought process? Being a judge is not that difficult once you develop a certain level of expertise because you've been there before. And of course, that's true about everything else that anybody ever does within their life. Although each case is individual, the basic idea of how it should be analyzed is pretty much the same as long as it's similar. And then sometimes across different cases, the same process is used. So he would say, okay, I had a speeder once, and that person was going to work, and we fined that person. I had another speeder that told the police officer he wasn't going to stop, and he fled off and said, no, I'm going to work. You're not stopping me. And I gave that person 7 days and a fine. So you see, it's not that outrageous. The judge would think, hey, we're all on the same sheet of music, right? We have this thing going on, and this person opened up their business. Now, I do believe the judge should have ordered a pre-trial investigation of her financial condition just to find out if she was telling the truth. I've been on so many different cases where there are end results and private investigation, marshal work, that kind of thing. The end of the investigation says that the person was lying. They weren't this, that, or the other thing, and they were very wealthy, and wealthy people tend to play that game. They are gamblers. Some of them are gambleholics. So they'll gamble with law enforcement. They'll gamble with the judge. And then when you call their bluff, you catch them. So there's no evidence yet. And maybe the lieutenant governor and the governor has heard that she was in that condition because a lot of people that are in business are running their business on a wish and a prayer. And I realize that. That's why we have bankruptcies happening and everything else throughout the world, and we want to minimize those the best we can. But her case is not as rare as one would think. There are a voluminous number of other cases that are similar, where consideration wasn't given until the person apologized. All right, I was going to give that guy 7 days and a fine, but I said, apologize to that police officer, and we're going to do some community service And because you have shown financially you're strapped, we'll increase that community service, reduce the fine, that type of thing. What could the judge have said? Hey, I want you to be educated on COVID-19. The court's going to assign you a project to do at home in reference to victims of COVID-19. So again, I think the politics around it is causing the lack of vision on how to approach the case. Again, I don't know the judge, but I can see a judge of any political persuasion saying, you're not going to apologize to the court. And I had all these people for all these years that apologized to the court because they appreciated that opportunity. Again, she's very similar to a person that's speeding. Police officer pulls the person over, and there's a little more inherent danger. Well, I don't know. We're not going to say that it's absolutely safe because nobody knows where the fatal strains are. Nobody knows where the more aggressive strains are. Somebody comes in from New York, stops at her salon, and it's not the same as Walmart. I've been in Walmarts. If Walmart was the same as their salon, I wouldn't have been there. All my purchases would have been online. Period. But I went into Walmart. They got the ventilation, the HVAC on high. And I don't know if it's everyone, but the one I went to, I could tell the air was moving. I bet you move into her place, it's not moving because it costs a lot of money to do that. Well, Walmart is worried about having COVID-19 come up in their store, and then they're gone for a while. They got to clean the store. They got a bad name. So they've increased their HVAC intake and output. The ceilings are way higher. Even if she was at 25% capacity, you still are going to be denser than most people in most Walmarts who shop at the right time. So again, in some Walmarts, if you shop at the wrong time, people don't care, but they're staying at home. Remember that. They're staying at home. They're only shopping today and tomorrow and the next day or whenever it is. So again, people that are stay at home on Cuomo's list may not have stayed at home. Because you ask the general public, are you staying at home? They'll tell you yes, but they went out and took takeout 3 times a week and spoke to the lady behind the counter for 10 minutes each time. And then 3 other customers came in and they had a conversation. And that's New York. That's New York. So it's obvious that's what happened up there. It's not all stay-at-home people. However, again, we've had talking heads, we've had influencers being paid to tell people what? It's not dangerous. You don't need to protect yourself. That's the inference, and some people directly said it. Actually, it's worse than that. They will berate you, and we saw people in the public doing that. They picked it up from the influencers and the talking heads. They will berate you if you protect yourself because you're just this wimpy person who's afraid, instead of being a good citizen that's protecting themselves and their community. Now, it might sell votes or it might make you feel good or you actually believe that, but that's not the truth. And I know Governor Abbott has been an advocate of protecting oneself and protecting the community, but he's not wanting to step over into the fear category. There is no way to do it without a certain level of fear. Now, people that wanted to undo what was done to maintain law and order, and this is the thing, people are not getting the bigger picture. And of course, maybe he doesn't want to step into it. It's just because you don't want to step into it. A lot of things that we step into, we don't want to step into. But what that's doing is scuttling his ability to keep the numbers down where his work has put them. And it's not only his work, obviously, it's Fossey, Burks, and everybody else. There's a lot of stuff going on that is free speech, but yet at a certain point it's becoming a little bit beyond that into criminal negligence. So again, the judge himself did make some error, but I'm sure he could sit back and look at other cases and find similarities. And like I said, I've sat on so many cases, and it's just heart-wrenching to find, the horrible lives that you find. in law enforcement. In martial work, sometimes you're speaking to judges and staff and defense attorneys. So you're getting more of a picture of how it all unfolded within somebody's life. But, the parents come in and they're such good people. And none of us are good. And we don't want to get into this idea where one is better than another, because it's not true. The Bible tells us it's not true. It is the heart. And we can't see that. So God made sure we couldn't see that, because that's not a power that we're supposed to have. But yet, if you have a good heart, God can help you along with that to figure out how to be. And it kind of neutralizes a lot of things that we, quite frankly, are admonished not to be. But yet, none of us are perfect. We all have a sin somewhere. We all have become an abomination. But that's the key to the gospel. It's there to save us. We can't save ourselves. And it's no indicator of how much God loves us by what we have or how pure we are. Because God's operating at a higher level. He sees things the way they really are. So again, there are cases that I've been on where somebody comes in and they're just such good people, and they tell their son or daughter to apologize for what they've done, and they do that. And that's the reality of who that person would have been, sans all the other stuff. And that also includes possession, demonic possession. Could be police officers. I brought that up before. Police officers do not drive around your community willing people to commit crimes. Don't say the thing, if I have an opportunity, I'm going to do that person. Don't say it, because if you do it with your heart, you're actually causing somebody to commit a crime. And then God can't forgive you for that. Because now you become a devil, demon, antichrist, witch, sorcerer, possessing another with your enabler, Satan. So again, he could have sat on a lot of those cases and seen hardened criminals apologize to the court for little things, just because the court provided a way for a diversion. Now, again, I think the attorney for the salon owner should have approached the court and said, Your Honor, should have told the client, talk to the client, speak with my client, and said to the court, Your Honor, my client doesn't have the money for the fine, so it doesn't make much sense to apologize to the court, because it's almost like she has to plead guilty at that point. But again, a lot of other things start moving. So if she didn't have money, if she really didn't have money, and we should have known that answer before she went before the court. Because then you can work from an educated, knowledgeable point of view. And there's people in the courthouse that are paid to find that information, in any case, as it's needed. So we should have known if that was true, and if it was true, there may have been a reason to say, hey, community service. And you could make it what you want it to be, and maybe some education on victims of COVID-19, on how they felt and what it did to them. Because like I said, all it would take is somebody from New York coming into her salon with a different strain of COVID-19, if that's what's happening. Again, I haven't done the study, so I can't completely say that's what it is, but that's what it appears that we're dealing with. And I said so, I think in March, early March, I was already moving in that direction, probably late February, that there was a weakening that was possibly taking place. So again, the absolutes with COVID-19 aren't here yet. So anybody that speaks in absolutes, again, there's questions about what they're saying. Fossey and Burks have to make you afraid a little bit, or you're not going to do it. We had to get these kids off of the beaches in Florida. And it was already proven that it made them sick. No, they don't even need to be sick. We don't know what the long-term effects of COVID-19 on anybody is. What if in 3 years they develop something else? We already know that there's heart trouble and some other things that come from it where there's no pre-existing. Or we don't know for sure it's coming from it, but we're seeing evidence. So again, it is not without harming everyday people that seem to be healthy. And quite frankly, we've had a reduction in the aggressiveness of certain strains, which tells us that a certain percentage are not being hit with what the model was saying was going to happen. So that model isn't that far off at this point. 75,000 could have been 100,000 if it hadn't weakened. Because like I'm telling you, every week I think it's weakening. That's what I felt. Now, we don't know for sure, but that's what I felt. Every week was an opportunity for it to be taken down a notch here, a notch there. But again, even though we would say, well, wouldn't that mean we stay shelter in place, stay at home, whatever it is, a little bit longer? No, not really, because then we have diminishing returns. I mean, my health in this apartment is not the best. I moved into this thing because it was a little more secure, but it's a little too wet for me. I think it's got some mold and some other things in here. I finally figured out I've got to keep my air purifier on 2 instead of 3, because if I do put it on 3, it sucks the air and the pollen in from the outside. It makes it worse. And then my dehumidifier has got to run 24/7 and keep it dry. Only when I speak, I don't run it. And I got to keep the apartment dry, and then the AC, keep it below 72 degrees. Even though I was putting it up before to kill any COVID that might be in here and keeping it humid, I developed an allergic thing going on in my body, but it's almost gone. It's going away when I learned to back it back down. So again, the idea is, what's more dangerous? I could live with a little bit of allergy for a little while because I was going to make sure COVID-19 was going to have a rough time living in my apartment if it got in here. And I did buy a lot of stuff. I bought 2 new air purifiers. I bought, so I did have expense. Reason being, I bought a washing machine. I put it back by my washing machine, a smaller one. And it had the filter that filters down to that level of COVID-19 coronavirus. And I put that back by my washing machine because it's a portable washing machine, but it's a nice one. But the droplets can come up out of it the way it's built. So I said, well, I'll just put one back here. And it's a different part of the apartment, so it's nice for it to be back there. I almost bought another dehumidifier, but I want to buy a car, so I have to really, look at what I'm spending. So I've decided that the other dehumidifier has got to wait. It has an air purifier side to it, which means it has a HEPA filter. I think at this point, all dehumidifiers, or at least a good number, should have those filters. Because it's kind of weird. You're blowing unfiltered air through your dehumidifier while you're trying to clean it with the air purifier next to it. They have these chintzy filters in them, and they're not that well. So I was looking at it. That's when my voice kind of moved away there. I really do want to get back to my ribbon mics, so hopefully it opens up soon. I got to get a vehicle and start driving over there. So that's that. The judge, maybe you could say the 7,000 was a little bit too high, and the 7 days, but I think he figured he was enforcing law and order, because everyone was in agreement. There was this pandemic, and everybody was supposed to do the same thing, because we have another million people not doing what she did, because they felt they needed to protect themselves or their community or both. So again, it's not a lie. It exists. It's killing people. It does kill people. We're opening up because if we don't open, we're not going to... If COVID-19 were to stay and be a threat next year, if the flu comes around next year, again, given that the flu is going to be here, we need to manufacture and produce certain things so that our nation is well and ready. How'd you like to go into the stores next October and say, I need some alcohol? And they go, well, we don't have any. We haven't had any since last March. You're looking for some isopropyl alcohol. So we need all of that to come back. The only way to do that is for the country to go back to work. Because, again, diminishing returns will we'll be sitting here next year with really nothing. I know a lot of people did it with bleach and things like that, but we do need to have everything. And again, saying what's essential industry, eventually it becomes the majority of what we're doing here in this nation. That's why it exists. We have a certain level of health, a certain level of comfort within our lives that keep our mind and our body well. Like I explained to you, the deep state tries to crash all of that in my life because their psychological studies in CIA, the $1 trillion projects and the $1 trillion technology, tells them that if they crash that, then a person becomes unwell, unhealthy, in a lot of cases will die. So again, that's what you're all experiencing, the crashing of your life. So that's what God's doing. God wants you to wake up to the fact that you don't have a problem with that happening to other people. So I'm not going to say it's okay what she did. She was given a biblical sentence. All she had to do was repent. But then again, she did have to pay $7,000 or whatever it was going to be. So again, the fine may have caused that woman not to want to apologize. So we should have researched whether she was strapped for money. And if she was, the best thing we could do, just because she's a business owner, we don't assume that she's okay financially. But then we could, adjust it, make it work for her and the court. And we're close enough to opening up that I don't know if it would be required for enforcement to, crack the whip or something like that. But, she did it. And everybody else didn't. She's not being braver. This is what they keep doing. You're brave if you don't wear a mask. You're brave if you go out and breathe on people. I mean, come on. It's communism. She's not brave. She did something selfish. Now, there might be a reason that she did it, but that hasn't been proven yet. I live in prove it land. And that's where the court lives. Although we do have sympathy. I mean, he did say, can you apologize? And then she does have an attorney. Where is he? Did he argue my client doesn't have money, Your Honor? Did he say, hey, can't you give her community service? Isn't that more appropriate that she maybe has education about COVID-19 people? Maybe she could sit at home and do something like make masks and send them out to, on the weekend when she's not working. She could make some masks and then send them out to different places where people really don't have money. So again, there's a lot of things that could have been done to make everyone happy, I guess. Politics enters in, and it could be anything. But I don't know, a $7,000 fine or a large fine for somebody that doesn't have money could cause them to challenge the court, especially with the politics and the publicity around it. Maybe her mind is not her own. And it probably hadn't been for a week or two. That's why we're seeing additional people die. Their mind is not their own. The influencers are known to influence. The talking heads are a form of influencer. They get paid to influence people, and in this case, they influence them to kill themselves and kill their neighbors. So enough on that. As far as rent health and mortgage health, I don't think we're far from getting somewhere on the majority of that. And again, bankruptcy is still there. Other people went through bankruptcy caused by government intervention in their life. The deep state will cause people to need to bankrupt. And you don't have a problem with that because you believe that's what the system is. That keeps the bad people out, and you're a good person. So it's fine, right? Chamber of Commerce. So again, God is not mocked. If you don't learn from what's just happened in this nation, God will bring another course of fire, and God has told me that there is already another course of fire here. Hasn't told me what it is, but it's here. Now, deep state's in my head trying to tell me what that course of fire is and wants me to speak about it. But I won't because God hasn't told me. They're demons, devils, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers trying to possess their victims into crime and into nescience and into misspeaking and anything else they could. Immorality. That's who they are. They have no joy unless they can cause another to fall. They take pleasure in unrighteousness. They run off and have sex with each other when they cause another person to fall. That's your government. The rest is an illusion. So again, we can develop programs that verify that people are having an issue, and then we can provide some rent assistance. If a person receives unemployment and they can't cover the rent, we can provide that rent assistance. We can also develop payment programs outside of bankruptcy where we can say, hey, this person is protected under the COVID-19 Rent Repayment Act. This person has agreed to pay $200 extra a month on top of their rent, if they can, until the debt is taken care of. And if they leave that particular place, they're still bound by $200 a month or something like that. So again, we can also have the banks just take those mortgage payments if the person can't pay it and have them put it on the back end of the mortgage. But banks do some justification. And of course, if the person spent a little extra because they were stuck in their home and they needed to buy this, they needed to buy that, they needed to get a lot of bleach, a lot of alcohol, an air purifier. I had to buy that. My grandmother needed this. So again, the expense of a national emergency can cause one not to come up with the mortgage. So again, we can develop programs to help everybody get along to get along. And of course, there will be people that will file bankruptcy off this. So again, the more we do to get people forward, it isn't just opening up. The more we do to get people forward, the less bankruptcies we have, and then of course, the better the economy will be. But some people were, again, on the verge of bankruptcy beforehand. So again, every crime of domestic violence or something like that during COVID-19 is not necessarily related to COVID-19. You're still going to have a certain number. If you have a rise, some of it is. But then again, is it because of another reason that people are paying more attention to what's happening in their community? Because they're home now. Everybody's in this apartment building and there's 90 people, but during the day, usually there's only 3, and none of them live next to each other. And now 2 of those people always have domestic violence, but nobody ever calls because nobody ever hears it. And now you're all there, 80 people. You're like, let's call the police. All panicking, calling the police, because now we have domestic violence that's been going on the whole time. So again, you're going to get more calls to apartment buildings for differing things based upon that's where people are now, and they've got nothing better to do than call about something going on around them. And of course, domestic violence is a bad thing, and we've had tons of those calls where I lived, several places. And it is what it is. And I was the guy that let them in most times. I would show up and they'd be like, yeah, we got to get in here. I was like wired to them, but then the good cops had me wired in. The bad cops were trying to push me out, but I wouldn't always be there for them to let them in. But most cases, I was there to let them in. And I would let them into the building, and they would go about their. But then sometimes they'd be like, do that Keystone Cop thing, trying to figure out where the apartment is. And they go, okay, what number you want? Okay, this way, this way. And for my sins, they destroyed my life. The sin of showing police officers where the domestic violence apartment was. But the problem is that the FBI and the CIA did that. For all the good things I did. It aggravates them when you do good stuff. When you're their victim, if you do something really nice for people, they get mad. If you go to church, they get mad. That's why they took over the churches. They made all these programs. Well, the churches have to be careful and they have to listen to us or you're all going to die. So again, why are you questioning what's going on here? God's letting you all live that life. But yet you all want to build everybody up that you're all actually with God and the gay marriage and the people who use drugs, they've brought this on you. It's you. Wake up, all of you. There's gay marriage because of all of you. You all cause people to be gay because you're not happy until people are that. So God takes the opinion that it doesn't matter anymore. He's going to look at their heart. Whatever they wanted in life, if they got a good heart, then that's fine. I've seen videos where homosexuals, transgenders, don't wish it on anyone else. They say, this is not for anyone. This shouldn't be for anyone. So again, study the reality, not what somebody's trying to put and deceive you with, or put into your head and deceive you with. They're here. I'm trying to stop them. That's why I'm stuttering. Now, there's some entities here that have come through me from heaven, and they're going to visit all of you and figure out how to destroy your life. If they can't do it, there'll be some right behind them. Because you shouldn't be here. You're devils, demons, antichrists, witches, and sorcerers. You're supposed to live in hell. But instead, they want to give you heaven. Because you'll murder people for them. But when it comes time to go to Venezuela and drop off some weapons, you can't do that either, can you? Because all you know is how to murder U.S. citizens. With surreptitious drugging and violent psychological torture behavior. Freakos everywhere in government. And I'm not watching your life. I'm not in there destroying your person. What they'll say is, well, he's doing something to us, so we're doing something back. What are you doing something back? You're not doing something back. You started this decades ago to begin with. And you're in my personal life, physically affecting it, and physically affecting people around me with psychological warfare, psychological torture, surreptitious drugging, and any other kind of violence you can visit on people. Sick pieces of garbage. Oh, but they're the heroes. They're the angels of light. They're the ministers of light. Because they do your bidding, criminals. Now back on track. So again, we can help people financially with what's going on. We also should understand that the church is telling you that it's someone else all the time. Go to Isaiah. Just because you run a program to heal something doesn't mean your heart wants to heal it. If your heart doesn't want to heal it, then you can't heal it. If 90% of your church doesn't want to heal it, they're not going to heal it. I've been places that will help people charitably, but they won't go in any place that makes them a little uncomfortable. Which means they can't get anywhere. Satan put them in a box, they stay in a box. They're just an illusion. But the CIA likes them, the FBI likes them. Why? It's not that they're not criminals, they're criminals. They're big criminals. That's why the CIA likes them, that's why the FBI likes them. They're their criminals. The same thing that's happening in Mexico is happening here. People are being allowed to commit crimes for the wealth and the security of a criminal enterprise that you've all called the deep state. I call the beast. It involves churches. That's why you can't get rid of some pastors that you know are having sex with people in your community, because they work for the deep state bosses, whether it's your in the image of your Chamber of Commerce, retail outlets, local government, state government, whatever it is, it is. So again, if somebody is committing a sin, they're the same as everyone else. So if you could get to the next level and say, well, we're all committing sin, but they're an abomination. And you stand up there and go, that's an abomination because you just caused strife. So that preacher in Louisiana that opened his church just causing strife. And he told people to unprotect themselves. It tells you not to tempt the Lord your God. He tempted the Lord your God, and the Lord supposedly his God. I don't know if we can say that, because people will worship Satan all day and call it Jesus. Beat him a whole life in different forms in different places, and sometimes it's not Jesus, sometimes it's, Elohim. And that's just one, tempting the Lord your God. You're also not supposed to be mischievous and cause people to violate law. So again, politics gets in the way of a lot of things. That's fine. But that's your world. Can't afford to let that happen in the real world. Well, you call it politics, and that's kind of where I'll call it right now. But of course, a lot of it's criminal behavior, organized crime, racketeering. Again, if I take, let's say you go down to the store and you have a meat market and you're buying meat, and the CIA trains that person to be a psychological operator. Is that person now a meat market owner or a meat market employee? No, they're an agent of the CIA and a psychological warfare operator. Happened to your police department, happened to your governor's office, happened in your hospitals, happened in your retail outlets. Called the beast. Boo. You're it. All of you. All right. So there's a lot we have going on out in the community. There was going to be a rise, but it should have met the decrease. But because all the talking heads, whether they're conservative or liberal, are causing people to feel a certain way, it's messing up that decrease. Because liberals know that if they work people a certain way that don't like them, that they'll tend to go in another direction. So again, there's a lot of different psychology that's CIA technology that has been leaked and used by criminals within political circles. And that's one of the psychologies, and how to get somebody to do something using psychology of a double or reverse nature. Again, they're anti-clinical psychology. They're anti-psychology. Again, the beast. They take what damage causes in people's lives and then introduce that damage, hoping the person will come out the other side with that damage. So we have criminals that we know what happened in their lives to cause them to be a criminal. We still arrest them. We still put them in prison. We might have a mitigating circumstance or two. But we know psychologically, in a lot of those cases, what the clinical psychology says happened and did happen. But there are people out there with that knowledge in your governments that take that clinical psychology and turn it into what you would call weaponized. I would call demonized, because they're demonized, and they demonize. The demonize means something. They're demonized. When they demonize somebody, they're demonized. Their eyes for Satan. So again, am I telling people to go out and be homosexual? No, I'm not. I'm telling people to get married to a woman. A man get married to a woman, and a woman get married to a man. That's what I'm telling them. But the rest of whatever's going on in their life is Caesar's. I'm not going to worry about that. Because I have God's world that I have to pay attention to. But I'll tell you right now, your government is going to try to make everybody they don't like gay if they can. Because in their circle, and it's not all of them, but a good portion of them, because in their circle they can use that. It doesn't. Some of them are even gay. Some of them are heterosexual. It doesn't matter. They're twisted. Some of them are not even going to marry anyone or be sexual with anyone. They're that twisted. Their sexuality is psychopath. They engage in that activity with government and as government, and it makes them have a climax inside. That's who they are. I mean, there's no other thing that can be said about those type of people. But the Bible said they would be here, and they're here. So again, if you're an honest person and you felt for that woman, that's fine. We live in the United States of America, and theoretically, your opinion is free, and you get to say what you want, freedom of speech, as long as it doesn't hurt other people, which has happened. People have been criminally negligent, have said things that cause people to die from COVID-19 after we worked for months to make sure they were safe. So again, this upturn that we're seeing cannot be part of the opening. It's too soon. It happened almost immediately when the opening hit. That can't happen. So again, we're still experiencing most likely the majority of the upturn being from people being, quite frankly, berated until they would unprotect themselves. Again, they were psychologically operated, which really does, for lack of a better term, scumbag the work of the COVID-19 task force. So we should have had a larger decrease. So when the increase hits, we should have still been decreasing for a few more days at least, probably about 5 to 7. So we should have seen a decrease, and we didn't. We saw an increase. So that started me wondering, and that was a while back. I was trying to figure out what was going on. And again, when I'm trying to figure something going on, God is hearing me. And eventually God provides the answer. So it's very unfortunate. We would have had a better situation. We've had less people come down with it, but maybe come down with it later, that kind of thing. But some of them probably wouldn't have come down with it. And if they did, it would have been maybe in July or August when it was hoped it would be less. But you can't stay locked up in an apartment forever unless you can, which means there are people that can't and people that shouldn't. If you have the antibodies, why are you going to sit in the apartment? So again, that's a very important part of this. The testing has to shift into the antibody testing. Yes, it took us about a month to get it really going somewhere, and that's okay. I mean, it was going, but when we got it a month later, we got it going. Yeah, it really took off. And probably within a few weeks, but we would say a month is really where it started moving. So again, that's going to take time to get that all moving, because even though it was a month to get it to that point, we had a month before that. So again, we had started before that month. We rolled out the testing, and then bam, about a month later, we're great. So we need to get the antibody testing going. Just a shame that we couldn't have something online, and we will. What's going to happen is we're going to develop protocols, we're developing protocols, and we're developing science that's going to allow us to actually protect ourselves better from this. And the key is to figure out how to do the antibody tests really quick. A standard process that might work, where you can send it to somebody's house through the mail and they can do something. That would be the best. Now, I don't know if we can do that, but, futures, whatever. Again, remember, we used to watch Star Trek I guess some people in the 60s, I think I watched it in the 70s. And you would see these little communicators and go, wow, isn't that neat? Everybody walks around with a cell phone. So we got our communicators. I wish I was awake, because I could have really brought things earlier in life if I was allowed to manifest. Now, when we look at Moses was asleep. But I know I've already spoke to the spirits. So he had an illusion of a life, because this is what they did in my life. Oh, he seems to be awake. He's in the army. Seems to be healthy enough. He runs a lot. But everything in my life was screwing me. I mean, really, I was disenfranchised when it came to a certain level of it. I mean, I was living a life, but I was a very powerful person, because I was a god. If I wasn't getting my real life, I was just getting an illusion. until they were ready to launch the final solution. So again, Moses was wealthy. Moses was with the Pharaoh's family, but guess what? It was an illusion. He was asleep. He was there. They possessed him. And then he woke up when he was 40, and he was able to get further connected to God, and things happen. And we're still there right now in that type of world. So again, if you want to think about something that the deep state tells you to think about, then think again. Because God is not mocked. And the next course of fire is already here. Now again, don't be violent, but give way to God's wrath, which means give way to it. Don't heal the people that committed the sin unto death. I guess you could heal them. Don't pray for them. You could actually pray for them and heal them. I'll tell you that right now. You could. It's about your heart. But you could say, God, but if they committed the sin unto death, you handle it the way you need to handle it. Because we've been told not to pray for them. But yet, Jesus told us things in life, and he said, greater work shall you do. In Jesus' life, he told you things, and then he said, greater work shall you do. So if you actually look through Jesus' work, there might be a better way. But again, of course, plugging into all of that. So again, there's a lot of hints and clues and cues in the Bible. And then there's a lot of satanic mumbo jumbo. And that's what's going on today in these churches a lot of times. It doesn't mean that they're sinners. It doesn't mean they're not sinners. But causing others to fall. Go back to Ezekiel, Isaiah, Hosea. God doesn't put up with it very long. But you're all crazy in the mind. You all think you went, I call it in Star Trek, I call it crazy on, you went crazy on the ship. You went crazy on, remember when everybody on the ship went crazy? You're all lunatics. That's what happened here. You're all lunatics. These things that are happening are not because necessarily people are gay. It's because you're forcing them to be gay. With your heart, with your spirit, with your high place, your wickedness up there, principalities, spells, evil imagination on people, willing it. So to God, it's a neutral thing. It's outside of God's plan, but it's not like anything else is within God's plan. Your church isn't within God's plan. It's just not. You're working for the CIA and the FBI and sometimes the local police with the CIA technology. That's not in God's plan. It's an abomination before the Lord your God. Repent, and you shall be saved. Well, praise God in all that you do. Praise God.
You are listening to the Law Enforcement Pirate Radio Network. Radio Free Larry presiding.
You can run, but you can't hide.
Radio Free